You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Loman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Loman.
Hey everybody, welcome to the House of Sunny podcast this week. I guess we'll start with a Nico story. I'll have a Nico follow-up. It's really short. And then we're going to get into, the Google censorship. What do we do about all this stuff that's going on? I think we're all freaked out. We continue to be freaked out because things continue to... It seems like every day there's new crazy that we're looking at in the world. And what do we do? So we'll talk about that. So if you listened to the show last week, you know that Nico was kidnapped by my neighbor who was like some sort of crazy cat do-gooder who decided to pluck him off the street and save him from the non-existent coyotes that were not chasing him. Well, I think it was 2 days later that Nico was followed into our yard by 2 or 3 coyotes.
Ooh.
And we have it on video.
Wow.
We have these cameras outside our house, and they respond to motion. So,
can you post that on your page?
I posted it in the Elite Squad. I didn't want to post it on the page because, it's my house. But
right.
In the Elite Squad, you can see it. So if you want to see it, you're going to have to give us some money. You can go over to Subscribestar House of Sunny and become a member. If you give $1 a month, you will become part of our Facebook group and you can see the coyote video. Also in there, we talk and we post memes and we do some other behind the scenes stuff. So
if you give enough, we'll let the coyotes eat the cat and you can watch that.
Oh my God. Never.
But that's for a lot. There's a price. You have a price.
I do have a price. I can do that. So that happened, and then now he won't go outside. I mean, I'm telling you, my cat is smart. He's a savvy cat. So he comes into the yard. He's not going very quickly, but he wanders over to the deck, and he's standing on the deck. And then this coyote comes through the yard, and he jumps under the deck. And there's like a hiding place in there. And the coyote just kind of walks through the yard and leaves, and there was another one on the other side of the house. So they were obviously like stalking him out in the field, and they followed him in, and then they came at different angles into the house.
Oh, it's diabolical.
Yeah. So since then, he hasn't really gone outside much. Because he's a smart cat. He's like, I'm going to wait till my scent is completely gone, and then maybe I'll go out. That's probably what he's doing. He's just hunkered down.
So when he hid, then the coyotes just slowly go away, or did they keep coming closer?
No, they just left. And it was weird because it was kind of late in the morning for coyotes. So I think they were probably out there stalking him pretty, for a while. The sun was up. It was 7:30. The sun was up, and that's late for them to be hunting.
Yeah. But
we've also just gotten, ever since we saw that, and we have a plan in place where he doesn't go out before the sun is up, and he comes in before the sun is down, because we know the coyotes hunt. And so we actually, before we moved into this house, knowing we were going to live here, we trained him on a clicker with food so that we could get him in, and so that we could coordinate that. And I got to be honest, I was getting a little lax about it because I get up super early and it's still dark, and he'd meow and meow and meow, and it drives me nuts, so I just let him out. And that was a mistake. So he was out there right at prime coyote hunting time, and they were probably stalking him and thought they could get him, and so they were staying up late. So they
midnight snack.
Yeah, little snack right before bed, a little toast with jam right before bed.
They're cutting that out of their diet, though, so they just went home. They were disciplined.
It's like, it's so late. I'm not going to go to the kitchen now. I'm just gonna go to bed. You know how it is.
They felt better the next day, though. The next day, they were like, God, I'm glad I didn't eat that cat last night. That would have been so bad.
I would have been so bloated and gassy this morning. We haven't seen them since. They haven't been in the yard since, but they followed him in through the field. So I'm sure they're in the field. I mean, and my cat, he knows what he's doing. He's not wandering. He's staying super close to the house and not really leaving the house. And he's fine. He'll do that for a week and he'll slowly get out again. But I'm glad because he's not torturing me in the morning with meows to get out. So it's been a lot better. But anyway, that's my Nico story. So obviously my neighbor was right. My Karen neighbor has a point.
Yeah, you should be thanking her.
I should go drop her a note and say, well, I don't like that you kidnapped my cat, but no, I'm not going to encourage her because whatever. All right, so I just wanted to have a conversation and talk about what's going on, and I have some ideas about how we handle this. Actually, I have absolute certainty about how this needs to be handled, but just whether or not people can handle it and can do it. That's my concern, and whether or not they will, you have to have some courage. And the problem, I think, this is like a big problem with civilization. And I think the problem is that civilized people are civilized. So we don't really like to have conflict. And the more advanced our society has gotten, the more it seems like we are like that because we're disconnected from harsh realities of life. We don't have to kill our own animals. We don't have to see where our food comes from, Right. We're totally so babied. We have no harshness or discomfort or unpleasantness. I mean, life still throws you curveballs, but in terms of like physical discomfort, and it's one reason why everybody's so freaking obese. It's like, just take a drug for all the problems that your body now has. Oh, you got high blood pressure, you got diabetes, all these problems with being a fat sugar eater. Take a pill. And I just sometimes think if this medicine weren't available, people would be healthier. Because you wouldn't just die. You wouldn't let yourself die.
Life is too easy.
It's a little too easy.
And it's very hard.
Physically, it's too easy.
It's too easy.
And so we're not tough. And I mean, we're tough in some ways, but we're not tough in other ways. And we're so civilized. And then in America, unlike the Germans, we're sort of like live and let live. So when the communists were rising and taking over our institutions, we're like, well, I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion. So we let them take over our schools. I mean, we didn't want them to take over our schools, but they were the pushy jerks because communists are pushy jerks. They're control freaks who want to control every aspect of the economy in your life. So they're assholes and they're insecure and they've got problems. They're not like us. They're not civilized. They've got psychological problems. And we are like healthy. We just kind of, fine, be a communist. And then they push us at the school and they're being bullies. And so we just kind of allow them to have their equity class. Well, okay, you can have your equity class, but we still have American history and we still have all this other stuff. We don't realize that that's where it begins. And then they take that wedge and they bully themselves all over the place and take over the whole thing. But that's like what they do. You give an inch, they take a mile. And back when they were like, oh, we don't like Confederate statues, I was saying, don't give them the Confederate statues. If you give them one Confederate statue, they will take Thomas Jefferson. Oh, no. The Confederate statues are problematic. This is something that America needs to take care of. That's history of slavery. We really need, No, because it's not about that for them. If it were about that for them, they would be taking a reasonable approach. They would be going to the city council. They would be having a conversation. They would be trying to persuade. But they were never doing that. They were showing up at the monument to tear it down. They were showing up at the protest to keep the monument, to beat people up and create chaos. So they're not civilized. And then we have allowed bullies to take over our society. And then what they've done is indoctrinate the children. So now they have an army of guilt-ridden white people with money and nothing better to do than to march and support the thugs, the communist thugs. And they don't even know they're supporting communist thugs. They don't even have the mental capacity to go, maybe I should Google what Black Lives Matter is. You know?
And this is the long march through the institutions. I mean, this was a strategy.
It was a strategy.
Since the 60s to slowly infiltrate and to work within institutions and slowly change them and work against them. And it's worked beautifully.
It's
and Americans,
because we allowed
this
it.
is what, because I think Americans are non-intellectual by and large. We don't really, we ceded the intellectual realm to the universities, and most people just see that as, oh, that's cute. The universities, yeah, those crazy professors and all their wacky stuff over in the universities. And you've got people who leave the universities and then donate money to them, alumni who donate millions of dollars to these institutions, and they don't scrutinize what they're teaching.
I don't know if I agree with that, because maybe Americans, I feel like that's a stereotype. Americans aren't intellectual. And maybe even if we weren't, isn't it that we're also live and let live people who don't really want to be obnoxious and fight and push back? Like, what would we have to say to a communist at a school board meeting to block them having their diversity class or their diversity department? We would have to get up and be like, no, I'm putting my foot down. This is communism, and this is dividing us, and it's not going to happen, and it's not while I'm here, and I'm going to rally the other parents and shout you down, and I'm going to get in your face, and I'm going to be obnoxious, and I'm going to go door to door,
Yeah.
Like, it would
That's
require a real conflict. And the other option is to just be like, well, he's entitled to do it their way, and we'll do it our way over here. And then people will have this marketplace of ideas. That's kind of the spirit of our country.
I think it's also, but I also think it's people's unwillingness and ability to think through the consequences long term of some of these things in principle. When this stuff was starting, people like you and I and others would have said 20, 30 years ago, hey, do you realize if we allow this, it's going to lead to this, it's going to lead to this? And no one 20 or 30 years ago bought that. They'd say, well, no big deal, who cares? It's just one crazy guy, whatever. And they don't show up. And people don't fight locally for this stuff because they don't think it matters, or they don't think there's an issue of principle.
It's no fun to have to go be obnoxious and be a pain in the ass and like make everyone else there go, oh my gosh, well, he's really like your story last week about what you did with the art thing. You write this letter, you're like, no way. And then you get this sort of like, you get silence, which is sort of like this, Doug said something.
I lost 10 friends. I had to resign from the board. I mean, it's not,
right.
I had to decide right then and there, am I going to just go along with this?
Yeah.
Or, am I going to change my life in a pretty significant way in terms of like an activity and something I was doing that was somewhat significant for me. And, so it's a pain in the ass.
You had to pay a big price, but you stopped it temporarily anyway. If you were in a situation like a school board where your child was going to that school and you couldn't walk away and they couldn't push you out and they had to let you be part of the conversation, you could win that battle permanently. You know what I mean? If you just stayed tough and you didn't care that you were making enemies or that people were appalled by your behavior. It's like you have to be like Trump. You have to be the jerk who does not give a shit if you think his personality is problematic. You know what I mean? Well, you have to be pushy, and no one likes to be really pushy. So,
and I think very few of us.
Except it's communists.
Very easy. Well, they live for that. I mean, that, like you said, they're deranged. Their life is given meaning and they're given sort of, psychological and spiritual fuel by these battles they're waging, because their whole life is built around establishing control and taking over the government.
And
that's what they love to do.
Psychologically, that's them. They're the Karens of, the wider world. Like, psychologically, they want to tell you what to do. That is communism, is the top-down organization where everybody's not an individual. You fit in to the plan. The plan is top-down. It's control. It's total control of humanity. So, of course, on a micro level, that's what they are, deep down. And that's what you are up against. You're up against the asshole who wants to control everything, the bully. And so the only way to beat a bully is to be louder and stronger. Right?
And when you go to these meetings, those are exactly the kind of people you run into, and the kind of guy who's live and let live and just wants to, produce and run his business and be productive. It's an icky environment to want to go to, to go to a town or village meeting or a school board meeting and fight and deal with this stuff. That's the battleground for this. And we'd have to fight these people. You have to fight them locally, everywhere, constantly.
Yeah. In your job, in a school board, when you just, I've been so sickened by the pandering to Black Lives Matters that I'm seeing in corporate America right now. It makes me freaking sick. And I guess I need to write letters, or like get on Twitter and be like, Amazon, your Black Lives Matters movie choices makes me sick. It's like, you white, ridiculous people, I don't know if you've seen this, but when you get on Amazon Prime Movies now, the very first row of movie recommendations is labeled Black Lives Matters, and then it's black movies. Not like good black movies, like woke black movies.
Yep.
So there ain't no, Shaft on that list. Dolomite ain't there. So I really, the problem is that's unpleasant. But, if we actually did act that way and we encouraged our neighbors who are like-minded to show up and back us up, it wouldn't be so hard. Like, one of those people would speak up and everyone would just go, sit down and shut up, you bully. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that would be the end of it. But we've allowed them to just, God, they're a freaking cancer. So now we got to get out the goddamn radiation. That's where we're at. But I was just wondering why it's so hard to keep a free society going. And this is part of it, I think, because free people don't want to bully people. And somehow a free society has to maintain that connection to toughness and standing up and pushing back and not letting people like that an inch in society. It's not compassionate to let them have an inch in society. It's not nice. It's not like, they'll destroy everything, all the goodness. I would rather have any form of dictatorship than a communist dictatorship. I would rather go back in history and have Nero, or like, well, I don't know about Nero, but like Attila the Hun. Give me him.
Yeah, right.
So I wanted to play a clip from a movie. Wait, what just happened? It's called The Human Stain, and this is a scene with Anthony Hopkins. If I have the right scene here. Looks like oh yeah, I do. So the first scene is him in a classroom, and it's going to show him making the big mistake that then gets him into the committee where they accuse him of racism, okay? So the first words you're going to hear is him in the classroom teaching, and what he said in the classroom. It's just to set that scene.
Mrs. Cummings, Tracy Cummings, can you tell us?
There's no Tracy Cummings.
Okay, Mr. Thomas, William Thomas. See here. We're 5 weeks into the semester, and I haven't even laid eyes on these folks. Can anyone tell me, do these people exist? or are they spooks?
Were you aware, Professor Silk, that Tracy Cummings and William Thomas were African Americans?
How could I be? Never seen them.
But you are aware of the connotation of the word spook.
Ghost, Professor Rule, ghost. I was referring to their ectoplasmic character. Here's the first definition of the word. I quote: spook, informal, ghost, spectre.
But Dean Silk, let me remind you of the second definition: derogatory, Negro.
I'd never laid eyes on them. How could I know they were black? All I did know was that they were invisible.
Nevertheless, they have lodged a complaint. Miss Cummings was devastated. Now, the issue here...
These students have never attended a single class. Do they exist, or are they spooks? Consider the context.
But Dean Silk...
I've not finished! The only issue is the non-attendance of these students, their inexcusable neglect of work, and their sheer chutzpah. Oh, Miss Cummings is devastated. Give me a break, will you? To charge me with racism is not only false, it is spectacularly false. And you know it. Thanks a lot, Herb.
And then he just leaves. He leaves the meeting.
Beautiful.
That's how you handle that shit. You do not give an inch. You don't apologize. You don't, wait. You yell at them. You yell back. You say, fuck you. I'm not a racist. And you know it, like you don't let them pretend that they're doing something noble.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I love that scene. And I've never even seen the movie. Somebody posted that this morning. Okay, by contrast, Mike Gundy, the, OSU coach or assistant coach or something. Here, so I saw this story and I watched this video and I thought, and I watched the video, which is this pathetic apology, and I thought, holy shit, what did he do? Wear like a "It's Okay to Be White" T-shirt, which everybody knows is like a dog whistle for white supremacy. I have one, by the way, and no, he wasn't. So I was joking in my mind about that, thinking it must have been something bad, I'm for him to. Basically, he almost lost his job and he had to apologize. And I think he did end up losing his job anyway. I'm going to read you an article. I'll just read you this article. No, let's do the apology first. So he did something terrible, Doug. He wore a T-shirt that said OAN, One American News. So
What?
One American News is it's like a less big Fox. It's perfectly reasonable news organization. It's not even Alex Jones level news organizations. It's like it's literally a Fox alternative. You could wear a Fox News T-shirt. It would be the exact same message.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
And last I fucking checked, in America, we're allowed to have a difference of opinion, right?
I think so.
That's not even an opinion. I watch this news network for my freaking news. I'm astonished. Wait till you hear this guy just genuflect.
For wearing an OAN shirt?
Yes. You cannot believe how basic that is and how unoffensive that is. Oh no, listen to this.
We had a great meeting with our team today. Our players expressed their feelings as individuals and as team members. They helped me see through their eyes how the T-shirt affected their hearts. Once I learned how that network felt about Black Lives Matter, I was disgusted and knew it was completely unacceptable to me. I want to apologize to all members of our team, former players, and their families for the pain and discomfort
and their families
that has been caused over the last 2 days.
Because I wore a T-shirt.
Black lives matter to me. Our players matter to me. These meetings with our team have been eye-opening and will result in positive changes for Oklahoma State football. I sincerely hope the Oklahoma State family, near and far, will accept my humble apology as we move forward.
Wow. That's religion. That's a religious confession.
I mean, that's just unbelievable. Go out in public and... Whoops, sorry. And
He committed blasphemy, so he had to say, hosannas or whatever those are called.
I mean, it's a One American News Network T-shirt. So listen to this USA Today article about what he did. Mike Gundy's T-shirt choice showing his affinity for a far-right news network. Already we're into far-right, right? It's not far-right. It's just right. Is damaging his relationship with players at Oklahoma State. The Cowboys coach wore a One American News Network shirt while fishing last week. He wasn't even at work. His guide posted a photo of the outing on social media. So they caught him red-handed being a conservative.
Wow.
The Washington Post
Red-handed.
classified... The Washington Post, this is what USA Today is saying. They're now referencing Washington Post as like a legitimate... This is the circle jerk that is the modern media. The Washington Post classified OAN as, quote, the most fervently pro-Trump cable network, and said the network offers a concise lesson in creating fake news. So they're just pro-Trump. Okay, Trump's the president of the United States. He was voted in by half the country, but that is unacceptable to have that view in your free time fishing in a damn river in the middle of nowhere.
What a pussy. This guy, that pisses me off.
That guy is such a pussy that
What a
if I
loser.
were married to him, I would divorce him. I would be like, you just have no dick left. I mean, or balls.
Dude.
I don't even.
Seriously,
both?
dude.
You
You're a
just
football
chopped
coach.
off your dick and balls.
Wow.
And Paul Joseph Watson had the funniest response to that. I can't find it right now, but it was like, I just watched your balls shrivel up and hide inside your body or something like that. But seriously, though, what happens?
Who could ever respect that man?
Who could ever, though, if he thinks he's damaged his relationship with his players, will he ever be able to tell them what to do ever again?
No.
Can he lead his players now?
He's the leader. He's supposed to be teaching them. They're expressing their feelings as children, and he's acquiescing rather than saying, hey, I'm an adult. I have a right to my view. If you don't like it, too fucking bad.
Right.
That's not how we roll here.
Right.
We each have our opinions. I have my opinions. I'm wearing a shirt on my own time. And if you don't like it, don't look at it.
Right. Easy. It should have been more like what Anthony Hopkins did. He should have been screaming at them.
How dare you?
How dare you tell me what to think and who to be, and that I can't support the president of the United States, and that means I don't care about you and care about black people. Like, how dare you? Trump wasn't racist 5 years ago. He's only racist because he's not a Democrat now, and he's in office, and he doesn't pander. I mean, he could be yelling these things at these children. He could educate them on the situation. He could sit them down and turn on that news network and force them to watch an hour of it and tell me what's wrong with what you just heard. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Pull up the website right now.
Oh, you
The
don't like my
headline is-
T-shirt? I'm going to open your eyeballs for the next hour mechanically and put drops in there like Clockwork Orange and make you watch One American
We're only
News.
allowing OAN in the facility. We're
Right,
only
for the
allowing
next week.
OAN.
F you children. Exactly, you babies. Grow up.
That's negligence. I mean, that's criminal negligence. That would be like a day school teacher, or daycare teacher going into a bunch of 5-year-olds, and they say, we want candy because that's what we want. And the teacher says, oh, I've heard you. And I've heard you voice your feelings, so I'm just going to go ahead. Here's all the candy, everybody. And we applaud her.
That man's career is over because of the apology, not because of the T-shirt.
Exactly.
And
we're seeing this everywhere.
We're seeing like that quarterback when he said, I'm going to stand for the flag.
Drew Brees. Yep.
And then all of the 50 apologies he's done since then, and now he's going to not have his job either.
And all he had to say was "F you."
Fuck off.
You don't tell me what to think.
I'm a patriot. You don't tell me what to think. I'm a free man. We need to start saying that phrase. I love it. I say that now all the time. I'm a free woman. Remember that. God, we're free, you guys. We're free. Say what you think. Tell the truth. Don't let these bullies win. And that means local. It does mean local, because they have taken over, and they think that they can just tell us what to think. They say it with so much confidence and so much sneering contempt because they haven't been challenged in 50 years.
Right. Just a little pushback would end this.
Yeah. And so, here's an example of serious another example of massively pussy behavior that is un-American as far as I'm concerned, and is it's a perfect example of what's happened to our culture and why even people who like freedom are just not pushing back, and they're just letting it fall apart and letting it happen. And that relates to the Google story. So just to update you guys, Google, I'm sure you've heard of it if you haven't heard of it. Google told the Federalist and Zero Hedge, basically they banned them from search and
demonetized their ads.
from AdSense. So from what I understand, most media organizations, it's like, this is what Tucker said on his show, and he knows because he ran the Daily Caller, it's 75% of your income comes from AdSense. It doesn't matter who you are. That includes the networks and stuff. Is that right? Or is it just print media? It's probably just print media. So that's a huge chunk of your revenue. And Tucker said, they can bankrupt you overnight. Just with a touch of a button. Take away your AdSense, you're bankrupt. And that's what they did to Federalist and Zero Hedge. They did it to them, Federalist, because... So, by the way, they did it because an NBC activist, this is their competition, went after them, saying to Google on Twitter, "Are you aware of something that was said in the Federalist comment section?
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of that?" And Google was like, "Oh, no, okay. No, you can't have comments, Federalists, or you can't have ads." So the Federalist has given in, and they have taken down their comments section, at least for now. I mean, if I were them, I would do that, and then I would find funding, and then I would put it back.
Yeah, this is NBC News reporter Adili Momoko Frazier.
What's her background? Let's Google her.
Thanked 2 foreign nonprofit organizations for their, quote, collaboration in urging Google to demonetize the Federalist, a respected conservative American news site.
What's her name?
Adili Momoko Frazier.
What the Momoko? I'm not
2
even getting
far-right
sites. How do you spell Adili?
Adele. Adele?
Oh, Adele.
Adele. It's got to be like a dealie, though, because it's sort of African. So NBC News, 2 far-right sites, Zero Hedge and the Federalist. I love how they always refer to any newspaper other than their
She's as white as snow.
Far-right.
I don't know what her background is, but...
So that is a complete outrage. It's a total violation of the terms of service. And then I suppose you're getting to this, the senators introducing this bill.
No. So, so that happened. Zero Hedge apparently had, Zero Hedge has been a problem for a while. I don't know what their specific
That's my favorite website.
Yeah, it's a great website. There's a lot of stuff on there that's good. So Google does that. And let's just remember first, Tucker's been talking about Google. He had that show. He said this. He called basically for them to lose their 230 status. If they're going to deny the 230 status to people that show up that they're giving ads to, then they shouldn't have it either. That means they're not neutral. And that was a really good point. I'm disturbed that I didn't know that it was so high. I didn't know that they could control basically all of print media. They don't just control search. They control all print media online. Google. So let's remember who Google is. Peter Thiel, who is not Alex Jones, had this whole thing a few years ago, about how Google has been infiltrated by the CCP. Mm-hmm. We have a hostile foreign government who gets to push Google around, at minimum, if not just completely running it. And they've done so much in the last few years. More than that, like even before the election, it was proven that they were trying to sway the election. And that guy proved that they were able to move millions of people just by changing search to move votes. So that's like subversive. That's something a free government has an absolute right to go frickin' deal with in some way. And the 230 thing almost seems sort of namby-pamby to me. Like, why aren't we having hearings about who the hell is running Google? And all of this election meddling and culture meddling to change elections and the power structures in this country, and literally tear down everything we value as Americans, especially free speech. So with that happening, and then you got, okay, let's just go down the list. We're banning books. We can't have Mark Twain. We can't have To Kill a Mockingbird has been banned in Minnesota. Gone with the Wind is out. Dukes of Hazzard is coming down off of Amazon. They're evaluating that because we can't have the Confederate flag anywhere. They're tearing down all the statues. Columbus, Jefferson. They're changing anything called Jefferson or Washington is now problematic. They're changing the names of schools named Washington and Jefferson because they were slave owners. And they censor all conservative content. People get fired for saying the wrong thing all the time. So all of that is happening, and you still have these nitwits who will say, but it's a private company. I don't want to get into a battle with these potentially the CCP, but obviously like a very powerful financially, I don't know, they have so much money, and they donate to all of the government, and we also have tons of overt public evidence that the government puts pressure on tech companies to do their bidding. The Democrats do that because the Republicans don't do that. And they do it publicly. You don't know what they're doing behind closed door. And you still have these Americans, these pussies. But it's a private company. So again, it's like this is where we lose because we just go, oh, well, we can't. We're a free country, so live and let live.
Right.
And I don't know what's different about what's going on in our culture compared to what would be different if the government were doing it. Maybe we'd get thrown in jail, but we're suffering. You remember that Cass Sunstein, he put out that book, Nudge?
Yeah.
And he just talked about how like direct government, this is very clever, direct government pushing, like, you will take this coronavirus vaccine and you don't have a choice. We're going to sit you down, tie you down, and inject it in your arm. That kind of thing just pisses people off and creates revolution. But if you say instead, well, you can decide, but you can't take a flight unless you have that vaccine.
Yep. That's a
and
nudge.
Your kids can't go to school, and because we got to keep everybody safe. You want to keep everybody safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're the bad guy. That's a nudge, but that is 100% government control of your body and your medicine. It's the same. It's the exact same. Yeah, you can still just like say, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I guess I'll go live in the woods, like off the grid. What other choice do you have? That's where you would end up. Do you remember they found this like Siberian family of like 20 people?
Yeah.
Who'd been out in Siberia through the entire USSR situation.
Yeah, since the 30s
They
or
had
40s.
just left. They just went out to the woods. They said, I'm not doing this. We're going to go live out there. And they were just so primitive.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's a great story.
It was a great story. So
but
we need to act like, we need to take it seriously. And honestly, at this point, I would be in favor of almost anything done to Google. I want to know, but I don't have any hope that's going to happen. We can't even hold accountable the Democrats who spied on a rival campaign and then tried to take down an American citizen who happened to be the U.S. president and people around him. With legally, they tried to take him down with fake evidence and spying and hearings that poured millions of dollars in trying to find any little crime that he might have committed over the last 30 years in his business or anywhere else. They arrested his lawyer. Remember that?
Yep.
And they got that guy to bend over and give all the information. And they still couldn't find anything on the guy. So Trump was innocent of like literally every crime in the United States because they would have found it.
That's right. And meanwhile, they've committed hundreds of crimes in an effort to try and get him, including
doing that,
perpetrating fraud on the FISA
has
court.
One person in that been indicted?
Nope.
Not a single indictment.
No, we're going to investigate it, though, Sonny.
I am so sick of hearing. Oh, my God.
In 7 years from now, we're going to get the results of this investigation. Can't talk about it until
just
that
wait.
investigation.
It's coming.
Just wait.
Boom.
Here we go.
The indictments are coming. They're about to come out. Been hearing that for a while.
Until some other big event takes over the news.
I don't think they will ever be held accountable. And we all know that it's Obama who should be in jail because he was the boss. What happened to the buck stops here? Not one of those people would have done that without his okay. You don't have that massive coordinated, like Susan Rice and her BS. And I'm sorry, they were all doing it. They unmasked Flynn, like Samantha Powers. Like, there's so much evidence that this came from the top because it was all of them. They didn't decide that on their own. No,
this was a cabal.
So let's stop being nice locally, and then I feel like what we have to do politically is we have to get the craziest fighter motherfuckers in the Republican Party. We have to primary everybody. And I was thinking, I'm like, my attitude is like I'm like Cenk Uygur on the right when he put in that he did that Democrats for Justice, and they did a nationwide search for the most radical actors.
That's how they found AOC.
Not only AOC, they got Ilhan Omar in. They got Rashid Tlaib. They got the squad.
Yep.
And remember AOC's first day, she led a sit-in in Nancy Pelosi's hallway.
Yeah.
A Green New Deal sit-in where she had a bunch of kids in not kids, but young adults. The new, the fresh, you're old, Nancy.
Yep. You gotta go.
I saw that. I was like, oh my God, she just took over the Democrat Party.
Yep.
And she did. Now we can see that she did.
Yep. And it didn't take much. It just took, primarying a couple clowns in smaller districts.
That's right.
And then they're unwavering. They're uncompromising. They never stop, and they're loud and they're obnoxious. And that's what Republicans now, or whomever, have to be. You have to be You have to accept it. Just accept that no one's going to like you.
No one's going to like you.
The left's not going to like you. Twitter's not going to like you. Hollywood celebrities are not going to like you.
Right.
Just tell them to fuck off.
Embrace
Who cares?
the racist thing, because you're going to get called racist. Just when you
The
hear
term
it,
has no meaning.
it has no meaning. So when you hear it,
It's
just
incoherent.
go, whatever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
I guess
Racism equals
we're all
conservative,
racist, right?
I guess. So, yeah.
Because if you're white, you're racist. So it doesn't matter.
Oh, that's
like
right.
that term.
It's my
that
original
term,
sin now.
Yeah, so just accept it. It's like you're a sinner. How could that term have any moral import if you have no control over your behavior because it's imparted to you through birth and through skin color and your race? Then you have no moral agency. It's a mark on you. So you can't be immoral. Say, well, I can't help it. That's just the way I am, I guess. So there's no reason to accept moral guilt when you have no choice in the matter.
So yeah, so if I had
Accept it.
If I had some Soros money, I would start Republicans for Justice, and I would do a nationwide search for good-looking,
ILO
smooth-talking,
type.
extroverted radicals who fight.
Yep.
And they're out there. You just have to put up with a little bit of discomfort, just like with Trump. I mean, people are uncomfortable with his personality. But so what? The problem with Trump is, what the fuck is he doing? Where is he?
Nothing.
He's not doing anything.
He's not doing
they
anything.
got to him.
I don't know. I mean, maybe he's letting the state. I think he's following a strategy whereby a lot of Republicans are probably telling him, let these cities fall apart and collapse. It's going to be good for you, which is a sick. And, I think in the last show we talked about this idea that no, you don't let that happen. That's not good for you. But
It's not
I think
right.
that's the strategy.
It's not just not good for you. It's morally wrong. It's morally wrong to allow this to happen when you could stop it legally, without making it worse morally,
Yeah, right now we need someone to be standing up and speaking out, who has power and has the ability to affect some real change legally.
Well, it's not going to come from politics right now. Not a single Republican. Tom Cotton came out and said, use the military and go into Minneapolis. And then his thing got banned, and I'm not really hearing from him. And part of it, though, so I was talking to a friend who's super into the Q stuff and the more fringe internet stuff. And, he looks into all that stuff, which I'm not. I'm kind of getting my news from more, I got to say, I don't know if you've noticed, but in the last 3 years, it got really hard to get good news, to find out what was happening. But it wasn't that hard. It was just harder. It just took more time. In the last few weeks, I feel like I don't know how to get information. I can't figure it out. I've never been in that situation. I feel like I don't know what's happening in LA. And I can't find out. Because I'm not tapped into sources. And what's happening in Seattle, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to know. You have to get Twitter sources or something, like someone who's on the ground, going in there. It is. It's like none of the regular sources, they're not telling the truth. So
and everyone has their slant. I mean, I'm actually thinking I need to go watch Alex Jones, because at least he would probably be trying to play video of stuff that's going on, but he's going to end up having a really bad slant. So, it's going to end up making me feel like things are terrible and things are worse. And I guess that's where I'm at, is I get this sense that things are so bad. And then I'm talking to my friend who's into the Q stuff, and he's just like, nope, there's a plan. And I just think, all of this chaos and horror that we're seeing, it's coordinated, it's intentional. And so, of course, there's people on the right who are coordinating and intentional. And of course that there's a plan. I'm like, what?
What?
He's probably listening because he listens to the show.
There's no plan.
I'm worried. I don't think that's enough evidence that there's a plan. And then there's this person,
I don't even know what that means.
Q, that there are people, CIA, ex-CIA, apparently he didn't tell me this, but I sort of have heard this over the years. There are ex-CIA people and intelligence people and government people who are working behind the scenes to try to get rid of the deep state. And like one of the things that they keep bringing up is that things are actually happening with Trump. It's just not being reported, or it's not considered significant, like him arresting a lot of child predators and the child trafficking stuff, which I do admit he's made a lot of inroads in that area. And somehow that is connected to the deep state and the elite.
Yes.
Because they're all pedophiles. And the Epstein stuff, and that's the other thing. Epstein was murdered in his cell, and we still don't know from the Justice Department what the hell happened in that federal prison.
Sonny, that was weeks ago. You can't. That's like ancient news.
A year ago, and we still don't know anything about it. What's Bill Barr doing?
That was 17 news cycles
keeping
ago.
Everything quiet for some reason. So I'm having trouble finding out and getting my finger on the pulse. I mean, I admit that maybe I think it is worse than it is. I do think the majority of Americans are like, what the hell? Like, we don't want this. But we're going to get more and more of it because no one's stopping it. There's no one standing up to the bullies right now. The bullies are in charge. So we've lost already. And until we have strong leaders who are willing to scream back in their faces, and like if Trump would just get the military out and pound them, I don't know what
this seems like this seems like such a great opportunity politically for Republicans to try and get back into control in the cities, where the Giuliani Republicans that used to run some of these cities are all gone. They're all run by Democrats. They're all run by Democrat machines.
Humiliated by what?
And they're. I mean, could there ever be a better time or a better example of why you don't want these namby-pamby Democrats running these cities? I mean, I can't imagine that anyone with a message of just simple law and order, and that they wouldn't win in a landslide. I mean, if they can't take these cities back now, then I think we have to start thinking about breaking up the country, because if the Democrats are going to preside over anarchy and tacitly and directly exacerbate anarchy and foment rage and revolution, then these cities need to be walled off. I mean, they need to go. They need to be out of our country, or out of our states, or taken over, or put into receivership somehow, or whatever.
I don't accept that. I've decided I don't accept a split, because any split or division puts us in a position of danger. Because the left will sell out to the CCP or some foreign power overnight. And we're going to end up in a war anyway. Mm-hmm. So, no, they shouldn't have 1 square inch of this country.
I agree with that. Fight them now. But I'm just saying, if we can't regain control, then you have to see them as an enemy force, essentially. And I don't know that just means, kicking them out and putting a wall around them. I don't know that works, but I'm saying that at some point you have to look for some sort of legal breakup or push back to get, to essentially end them, stop them. I don't know what that is. I really don't. I mean, if Seattle mayor is going to cede land and cede part of the city to Chaz.
They can't do that.
The Atlanta police have walked off the job, so there's basically anarchy there. I mean, this is all happening in the cities run by Democrats. So, I guess as long as it stays there, maybe it stays. But if it starts spilling into the suburbs, then you're going to have a shooting war. So, I'm just saying, politically, I can't see a better situation for the Republicans or some other party to swoop in and say, have you had enough of this? Now, here's what we want to do, and and if they can't regain control, that's telling you something. It's telling you the system can never be changed. And these cities are permanent bastions of corruption and anarchy. And, I don't want them in my state. But I don't know what to do. I really don't know what's going to happen.
It's almost too late. We should have been pushing back locally 10 years ago, especially 3 years ago. I think people got more rowdy 3 years ago when Trump was elected. Definitely seeing more rowdiness on the right. But that's almost been too late. And even with that rowdiness, we're still nice people, so we still don't challenge people in our art co-ops and our school boards and things like that. And I just don't know if we have it in us. And that concerns me. If we don't get really, we all have to adopt a personality of standing up to bullies, of moral courage. I guess it's not a personality, it's a character trait.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've been thinking. That's what I was thinking about today. And you had a quote. You have to read that quote.
Yeah. A friend of mine, I posted this on my page from a friend of mine.
The Rational Capitalist page?
Yeah, because so the quote's on there, but he had quoted this guy, Theodore Dalrymple. And I'll read you the quote because I think it captures so much of what you're saying today. He said, this is Dalrymple speaking, he says, in my study of communist societies, I came to the conclusion that the purpose of communist propaganda was not to persuade or convince, not to inform, but to humiliate. And therefore, the less it corresponded to reality, the better. When people are forced to remain silent, when they are being told the most obvious lies, or even worse, when they're forced to repeat the lies themselves, they lose once and for all their sense of probity. To assent to obvious lies is in some small way to become evil oneself. One standing to resist anything is thus eroded and even destroyed. A society of emasculated liars is easy to control. I think if you examine political correctness, it has the same effect and is intended to.
So we have, with the PC movement that started in the 80s, we've all become emasculated liars. And I feel that in the world. I remember when I was young, you could say anything. And, me Chinese, me play joke, me go pee-pee in your Coke. I mean, we had racial humor all over the place. Like, comedians were saying whatever.
Totally.
They said anything on stage. That was the 80s. You guys don't remember that?
Network TV was about racism and racial jokes.
Everything was being discussed and made fun of, and Eddie Murphy did his white face sketch video, and people were doing blackface, as a joke. It was like it was all, nobody cared, and it was free. And that's how we grew up. And Doug and I think we're going to do a show about the 80s. We're just going to literally do a show talking about how great the 80s was. That's coming up. We decided that the other day when we were talking, reminiscing. Man, that was a great time. So,
mostly because I was a teenager.
My point is, we grew up with that, and then over time, since PC, I remember when I went to college, I felt really stifled. And then, but that's college, right? I'm thinking I'll get out of college and it'll be different. And then I got into corporate America, and to be honest, it was worse. And it wasn't just that you couldn't talk about politics. I mean, particularly environmentalism had become this religion that you weren't allowed to question. And people would, or then when Bush was elected, it was like, Bush is so awful. And if you ever revealed that you were on the right, it was, you knew that you would be considered an other. That there was this in group, and it was the left, and if you were revealed to be on the right, you were not in it. And I never hid my thoughts because I'm an 80s child. I'm like, fuck this. I suppose I could have, but I didn't, not even in school. And I took bad grades because of it. I took a introduction to management class, and they had me in a test. I had to answer the following essay question. Why shouldn't Nintendo be allowed to control their own prices? And I wrote, what? I was like, well, I don't accept that premise. I wrote the whole essay on why they should be allowed to control their prices. I got an F, dude.
Wow.
I did the work, but I got an F and then they said in red, you didn't answer the question. That was in the business school at the University of Minnesota, Carlson School of Management, which is supposedly a good business school. And that...
You're not an emasculated liar. That's the problem.
And I really struggled in corporate America. Psychologically, I struggled because I felt that it wasn't about politics. The whole culture was, you couldn't even say someone's not doing their job. Or you couldn't be real. You couldn't be truthful. You couldn't say, I don't want to do that. That's not my job. That's that person's job. I'm really busy and I'm succeeding over here. Why do I have to do that? This person sucks. Why are we all running around supporting this idiot? Obviously I wouldn't say it like that, but you just had to sort of you could never speak out about anything going on in the company that you wanted to change or criticize or,
Yep.
And there was a real push to just treat everybody equally, regardless of merit. Or, you know what I mean?
Sounds like a bad company, though. There are a lot of good companies that don't do that.
So many companies. And then I was like, fuck this. And I became a consultant. And so then I was in even more companies, and it was everywhere. Huh. And the best companies were small or mid-size. And mid-size, it was iffy. But even in small companies, if you had the wrong leaders, but startups, entrepreneurs are way more loose and they are flexible, and they fire people in 5 minutes because they suck. But even then, if that person was a minority, you couldn't just fire them. I had a situation where I hired an employee who had been out of work for a while. She'd been in a car accident, and it was during the hot .com boom, and it was just really hard to find good people. And I put out a job posting, and I got 3 responses in a month. I had 3 choices. I picked the best candidate. She came in for the job, and it turned out she was really unstable. The car accident, she'd been out of work for 6 years after this car accident, and I think it rattled her brain a little bit, or maybe she was already kind of an unstable person, but she couldn't handle being an employee. She was really sensitive, and if I said to her, "Can you fax this?" that was too harsh. She wanted violence. All of this constant sugarcoating. And so I didn't really realize it was happening, but in midweek, she went to HR. And that was one of her examples. Sunny said, "Can you fax this?"
What?
That was literally one and I'm like, what is wrong with that? And instead of HR saying to her, you're too sensitive. This isn't, they did sort of, but she ended up, we had to give her a severance and to get rid of her. We had to pay her off. It's she was white, but everybody was afraid of the lawsuits. So they just paid her off. So she'd sign a thing saying, "I won't sue." I'm like, what? Fire her ass.
Right.
Don't do that. No. Fire her ass. Let her take you to court.
No, it's complacency. You rather just pay than have a conflict.
Yeah, but then you end up, these people run the world.
Yes. That's what's happened. And now we're living with it.
So it was in corporate America
We're living with a generation of it.
Culturally. So it's not just politics, but this whole idea that you're on eggshells around everybody all the time. And you don't get to tell the truth. I just don't accept it.
I don't think a country the more we see this happening before our eyes, the more I realize that government censorship was never going to happen legally, where the government says one day you wake up and the government says you can't speak or you're going to go to jail.
Right.
First what's happened.
One day you have free speech, and then the next day the law gets passed and you don't.
Yeah, here's the law. We passed it. It's a gradual process whereby people start censoring themselves and, in this way becoming emasculated liars.
Right.
And lying to themselves. And then they start to shut up and they don't want conflict and they start lying to themselves. And, slowly over time, you have a citizenry ripe for laws that will put you in jail, but even really need to, because people are doing it already now. However,
they've
even
accepted
in that,
the premise that
they've accepted the premise that words are violence.
Yeah,
that offending someone is
the worst
a kind of attack.
It's the worst thing. It's worse than anything. It's worse than rioting and looting and murder, and it's worse than anything.
Yeah, and I had posted the Sam Harris quote where he said, "Your capacity to be offended isn't something that I or anyone else needs to respect.
Yeah.
Your capacity to be offended isn't something that you should respect. In fact, it's something that you should be on your guard for, perhaps more than any other property of your mind. This feeling can mislead you. If you care about justice, and you absolutely should, you should care about facts and the ability to discuss them openly. Justice requires contact with reality. It simply isn't the case. It cannot be the case that the most pressing claim on our sense of justice need come from those who claim to be most offended by conversation itself." And so with that premise being accepted voluntarily, how hard is it for the government to simply say, everyone knows, Sonny, that if you offend someone, it's kind of a form of violence. So, we're going to attach, if you, first it's the hate speech. And as they're doing in Canada and Britain and all over Europe now, they've used those laws to censor journalists, websites, pundits. You can't say certain things. You can't criticize religion. You can't criticize Islam. You can criticize religion. And so on and so forth. And so, the United States is the last place left, but that's coming soon, I'm sure. But maybe in our lifetime where, it'll be illegal to criticize a religion or to offend someone. And that's the end of the country.
Right.
We're very close to that. And that's why we're saying it doesn't matter if you think Google's a private company or Facebook's a private company or whatever, to the extent that these companies, not voluntarily, to the extent that they violate their terms of service and breach their contract and push this type of censorship. Even, the Gundy apology is a great example. You can't willingly submit to this, even if it's voluntary, because you're creating an environment and you're psychologically conditioning yourself to government censorship, to gulags, to Nazi communist style gulags, where you're imprisoned, not just made to apologize and prostrate yourself publicly and beg the left for forgiveness from your blasphemy.
Yeah, like that coach
to where
did.
You're burned at a stake.
Come out and right now it's apologize. Now it's get on your knees, white person. Now
that was a confession. That's a religious confession. Yes.
And next it will just be a gun to the head. And that's not hyperbolic, because you just look at history. That is exactly what happens. So I don't know what you people are counting on. But we're Americans. Let's hope we do it differently. Let's hope we stand up to this. Ayn Rand at one time said that the key character trait or personality trait, or I don't know what, of Americans is disobedience. I think that's probably true when you look at the fact that you can't even get them to wear a medical mask outside, which I don't like and sort of appreciate at the same time. I love you guys. I love you non-mask wearers.
I saw a video yesterday of a guy, he was being attacked by leftists in a group, and he shot one of them. And I think that,
I saw that too.
You know what? I mean...
Did you see that girl get beat up on the train by a group of black people?
No.
And they said it was BLM, but I don't know if it was BLM. It was probably just a mob of black people that decided to beat up a white girl.
Yeah, we're seeing these videos everywhere. But what I'm saying is the guy fought back and he shot this leftist.
Right.
And I think, listen, shots have been fired, man. This is, Lexington, Concord, the shots heard around the world.
I think those are some of the first shots.
Those are shots of it. Yeah, I mean, it's Lexington and Concord, where, it got to a point, right, where what did Jefferson say? Mankind will suffer, experience hath shewn that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. And, it takes a lot, but there's a point now where people are firing back, literally. And so I think, sadly, that's where we're at.
The most important thing is that we support our fighters and that we get more fighters. That's the most important thing. So any criticism or anybody going, there's a private company, if that's your cause, go fuck yourself.
Yep.
Your cause
go
needs
live in
to
Chaz.
be pushing back against the left and what you're seeing. That is the only cause for anyone who loves liberty right now. And the only way to defeat that is to fight it, to push back against bullies with stronger power. That's it. So we need to get rid of McConnell. With an AOC-style Republicans for Justice, that's what we need. And not only that, but, it worries me because people like Tucker, who are so great, and we do have a lot of really righteous and truth-telling. But, look at what happened to Michelle Malkin when she was like, I support this Fuentes kid and all that he's doing because he's saying what he thinks and he's trying to be funny, and it's kind of this Gen Z sensibility, and you guys don't really understand it. And then Ben Shapiro and I don't know, I mean, they kind of, she got shunned. She got canceled within the right.
That's
so
bullshit.
The right has its own little cancel culture. If you support Gavin McInnes, then you must be a racist because Proud Boys must be racist, even though they're all black and Latino and they're all mixed people. Because they're just going ahead and buying the narrative, and Milo Yiannopoulos got taken down, and everybody who fights gets abandoned by our side, and we have to stop doing that. And so when Ben Shapiro abandons somebody, he needs to be abandoned. Anyone who's going to be a pussy needs to be put in their place and abandoned at this point by the right. We need to support our fighters. We need to stand with them. And then locally, you need to start speaking out and don't let these little neighborhood bullies do this stuff that they do and take over everything. Start pushing back on them. We need to squeeze out these people. That's what I guess I have to say. I think we're done.
Amen.
An hour and 15 minutes. We did a lot.
Yeah, it was good.
All right, guys. So we didn't do our conspiracy theory watch this week. We didn't launch that new segment because we didn't get prepared. But we will next week. And again, we got some great emails asking us to cover different conspiracy theories. So we're excited. I think this is going to be a good segment. And we'll cover those. I think I won't tell you what we're going to do next week for it, but we do have a plan. And we're going to do one a week. So we'll do the show every Thursday. We'll do our conspiracy. We need to do a royal watch. I haven't done one of those in a while.
Oh, boy.
But it's hard because it's so boring. It's coronavirus.
We kind of love it, though.
I mean,
Meghan Markle.
Listen, she did do something highly phony and annoying a couple weeks ago. But it just pales in comparison to what's going on.
Yeah.
It's hard to want to take 5 minutes away from all this and talk about that lady. Okay, so let us know what conspiracy you want us to talk about. We'll put it on the list, and maybe I should explain that further. We're going to take a conspiracy theory, any conspiracy theory, and we are going to study it. We're going to look at it. And then Doug and I are going to rate it as pink lizards from Jupiter level conspiracy theory. Certainty, like this is absolutely true, or possible, probable. So we're going to have a rating system, and then we'll go through it with you, because we want to support what we have said in the past, that looking at this stuff that we all thought, oh, this is a conspiracy theory. And then you realize years later, oh my God, like half that stuff is real. You've been lied to. And I feel like we've been lied to. We need to go now through all the conspiracy theories and check them. So we're going to do that.
Very healthy.
For you. So that's it for the show. Please support our show. If you're enjoying it, go over to Subscribestar House of Sunny, and you can support us with a monthly donation, or you can go to houseofsunny.tv and do one-time PayPal. We are trying to get to a certain amount so we can get a producer again, and once we do that, then we can just do a lot more content. It's easier because I spend a lot of time producing the show as well as being on it for an hour here.
How can they give you money?
At Subscribestar, at the House of Sunny page, or at houseofsunny.tv. There's a donate button.
Gotcha.
All right. So let's get that done. And if you do that, there are some rewards, and you will get into the Facebook group, which, you know, you have like much more direct access. And you get to see behind the scenes conversations with people who actually support the show and love the House of Sunny podcast. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for our current subscribers. I really appreciate you. And we'll talk to you next week.
It's filled with satire and fun. It's been the demise of bad ideas, and we'll know what's right when she's done. So download this free podcast now and give perspectives you may lack. It's concise and right and achieves world peace. Guaranteed all your money back. Last time, ready?